Okay, so we are starting in the Gemsechtes Beya on 17a, Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Okay, so now the Gemara brings a statement. Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav. Says Rav Chia bar Ashi in the name of Rav. And we're going to talk about two Erevs. The person for Shabbos wants to make an Erev Techumim. What does that mean? He wants to be able to walk an additional 2,000 amas outside of the city. Person is limited to walk only till the Tchum Shabbos, but he wishes to walk another Tchum Shabbos, another 2,000 amas. So how does he do that? You put down some bread. It's called an Erev Techumim. You put it down at the end of the 2,000 amma that you're allowed to. That becomes your place of resting on Shabbos. And then you can walk another 2,000 amma. So you a total of 4,000 amma from the place that you're staying. Now, normally the person wants to do it for Shabbos. So normally you would do it before Shabbos. In this case, before Shabbos, he has 2 days Yom Tov. It's in the diaspora, or maybe Shana. Yeah. So, what's all that noise? Is that me?
It's Ron.
So, but this person forgot. So technically, he needed to put the Erev on Wednesday because Thursday and Friday were Yom Tov. And one is not allowed to make a place of his resting on Yom Tov. So he should not have done it on Yom Tov. So he's supposed to do it on Erev Yom Tov, on Wednesday. But this person forgot. And now it's Thursday, the first day Yom Tov. What does he do? So he says with the Erev Techumim, what he does is, he, on the first day Yom Tov, since you're not allowed to make an Erev Techumim on Yom Tov itself, he says like this: if today is Yom Tov, then what I'm doing means nothing. Because the 2 day Yom Tovs are Sveika de Yoime. We're not sure if it's Yom Tov or not. So we keep them both. So on the first day Yom Tov, you say, if today is Yom Tov, and then what I'm doing is of no value. I'm not koine anything. So he still doesn't have an error for Shabbos. But then on Friday, he goes back and he makes the same condition. And he says, if today is Yom Tov, then I already made the Erev Thursday. And therefore what I'm doing now is nothing. If today is not Yom Tov, I already made it there Thursday. So both days, one of the days is going to work because they're not both Yom Tov. So he makes the Erev on both days, and it's either whichever one is the not Yom Tov, that's what counts for the next Shabbos, so that on Shabbos you can go beyond the Tchum. That is by Erev Techumim. By Erev Tafshilin, the same thing is, the person, in order to cook from Friday to Shabbos, he needed to put down the Erev on Wednesday before the first day Yom Tov. But he forgot. So then comes Thursday, he puts down the Erev on a condition. He says, if today is not Yom Tov, then this is my Erev. And that will allow him to cook from Friday to Shabbos, because he made an Erev. But if today is Yom Tov, then he can cook from Friday to Shabbos anyways, because it's Friday, it's a weekday, there's no problem. Over there, by the Erev Tafshilin, this is the point we missed last time. It's very simple. An Erev Tafshilin, you're making it so that you can cook on Friday. So either the Erev works from Thursday because it's not Yom Tov, or you don't need an Erev on Friday because it's a weekday that you can cook for Yom Tov. But by the Erev Techumim, we need to make an Erev because we want to carry on Shabbos. So you got to make the condition both on Thursday, either an Erev, but if it's not an Erev, then you have to make the Erev on Friday because one day needs to have an Erev so that you can walk the Techumim on Shabbos. Let's go to the go inside. Omar Rav Chaim Wolosow Omar Rav, Rav Chaim Wolosow Rav, Maniach Odom Eruv Techumim B'Yom Tov L'Chaveri. One can place an Erev Techumim from first day Yom Tov to the next day Yom Tov. What does that mean? Rashi explains. B'Yom Tov L'Chaveri. Im Niskar B'Yom Tov Rishon. In other words, if he forgets even on the first day Yom Tov, second day he's doomed. Can't make an Erev anymore. But if he remembers the first day Yom Tov Rishon, v'cholu shnei yomim tovim, chamishi v'erev Shabbos, and now you have 2 days Yom Tov, Thursday and Erev Shabbos. Then umasne, then he makes a condition. He says, im hayoim choil umochar kodesh. If today, this is for the Erev for the Erev Tafshilin, Rashi starts off. It makes a condition. First, Rashi is going to explain the Erev Tafshilin, even though in the Gemara that comes second. That makes it a little confusing. Rashi explains first the weekday, the Erev Tafshilin. So he says like this. If today is the weekday, that it's not really Yom Tov, Thursday is not Yom Tov, Umachar Kodesh, and Friday is really Yom Tov, Eruv Erev, then my Erev Tashel is a good Erev. So therefore, he is allowed to cook on Friday because he has an Erev. He made it on Thursday because Thursday wasn't Yom Tov, so he could make an Erev for Friday. But the Im Chiluf, if it's the other way around, if yesterday was Yom Tov, then I can cook on Shabbos. I need tzorich l'erev tafshilin because it's a weekday. I don't need an erev tafshilin. I can go ahead and cook on Friday for Shabbos. The only reason you can't cook is because it's Yom Tov. If the first day is Yom Tov, then you made an erev. If the first day is Choil, Thursday is weekday, then you made an erev, so you can cook on Friday for Shabbos. From Yom Tov and Shabbos, and if it's the Yom Tov is on Thursday, you don't need an Erev on Friday when you want to cook for Shabbos.
How is that? I thought that is exactly why we have an Erev.
What?
I thought that's exactly why we had Erev Tafshilin, so you could cook on Friday.
Friday to Shabbos, exactly. But when I make the Erev, so even though I'm making it on Thursday, which is maybe Yom Tov, the condition will help me that I can cook on Friday, because if Friday is not Yom Tov and Thursday is Yom Tov, then you can cook from Friday on Shabbos. If we're making it to cook when we know for sure that it's Yom Tov, but in this case, he's making the Erev on Thursday, and he's saying either Thursday I could make an Erev because the Yom Tov is Friday, then I can make an Erev on Thursday because it's not Yom Tov. Or I don't need an Erev for Friday because it's not Yom Tov. The Yom Tov was on Thursday. So either way, he's covered. Okay, but Tchumim, he can't do that. He needs to have one Erev made either on Thursday or on Friday. But Tchumim Yoimar. And Tchumim it says, Ima Yom Kodesh, if today is Yom Tov, Thursday is Yom Tov, Ein B'dvarei Klum. So what I said, I made an Erev Tchumim today, doesn't mean anything. You can't make an Erev. Not allowed to make an Erev. So he says, what I'm saying doesn't mean anything if today's Yom Tov. And the Mara says the same thing. Bishal Tchumim, and by Tchumim, when they make the Erev Tchumim, says exactly the same thing. He says, Imayim Kodesh Ein B'dvorei Klum, but that means that he had an Erev from yesterday, because if today is Kodesh, then yesterday wasn't Kodesh, so his Erev was good. And if today is Kodesh, then today's Erev is then yesterday was good. So either way, he's covered. He doesn't need more bread. Same bread that he used, same tchum. The memon of shach habi erev. Either way, it's an erev. Abel b'shel tafshilin. But when we talk about the erev to cook, over there you don't have to repeat. Abel b'tafshilin ain't tzarich l'shamris v'lachzer as tonight the wacha. You don't need to repeat and go ahead and do it again, the condition tomorrow. Because it doesn't matter, because he doesn't need an Erev on Friday if it's not Yom Tov. He only needs an Erev for Friday if it is Yom Tov. And he made the Erev on Thursday. If Friday is Yom Tov, then Thursday wasn't Yom Tov. So he made an Erev Tavshilin. And if Thursday was Yom Tov, then Friday he doesn't need an Erev. It's a weekday. He can cook for Shabbos. So either way, it's okay. So that's why he says, Yom Tov l'chavere umasna. And he makes the condition. So this is really, in the Gemara, this is really about Erev Tchumim, the first one. And the Rava says this was the din of Rabbi Chaim Wolosow Barav. And the Rava says, Maniach Odom Erev Tashulim Yotav L'Chavere Umasna. But over here, as Rashi explained, you don't have to repeat the condition. One time is enough, because either way, you're going to allow to cook on Friday for Shabbos. Now, the Gemara says that Manda Omar Eruv Tchumim, the one, Rav, who says that you can even make an Eruv Tchumim, Kol Sheken Eruv Tavshilin. Of course, he's going to allow to make an Eruv Tavshilin on the first day Yom Tov with this condition. But Manda Omar Eruv Tavshilin, but Rava that says specifically the halacha by Eruv Tavshilin, Aval Eruv Tchumim loy. You can't make a condition by Eruv Tchumim. Why? My timer, what's the reason? The lemikna shivisa b'shabbat loy. You cannot make a kinyan of a place that you're going to rest, that your place of shvisa is going to start after the 2,000 Amma where you're going to put down the bread. You can't do that on Yom Tov. It's a condition, but even conditional, you can't do it. Rashi, we'll see. The lemikna shvisa b'shabbat. Even lav. So first of all, we're not talking about Shabbos, we're talking about Yom Tov. So Rashi first says, lemikna shvisa b'shabbat lav davke Shabbos. Nokad. It doesn't mean on Shabbos he can't do it. It's not Shabbos. Elo Yom Tov kodesh Shabbatim. He calls Yom Tov Shabbos. So he says like this: Loi hitiru loi liknois shvisa b'Yom Tov. Bafil b'sofik. They did not allow for him to acquire his resting place on Yom Tov, even if it's a doubt. Which means you're not sure it's Yom Tov. Can't do it. You can't make a shvisa. You can't make an Erev Tchum, even with a condition. We can make a condition by Erev Tavshilim. The imitiru by Erev Tavshilim. If they allowed for Erev Tavshilim, Hosamekom Shau Kovet Shabbos Itiru. Over there is the honor of Shabbos, so you can cook for Shabbos. So that's different. Over there, they allowed you to make conditions. But conditions, so to walk further, that's we're not going to help. We can't do that. We can't make a condition in order to get you more places to walk, even though it's conditional. But we don't want you to do that on Shabbos, on Yom Tov. Shabbat here means Yom Tov. Okay, go back to Toda Rabba. We learned in a Beitzah. Now here we're going to talk about from one day Yom Tov to the next day. Of course, the first day Yom Tov you may be cooking for you may be cooking for a weekday because the second day is not Yom Tov. So you're not allowed to bake and not cook. I said, cook, ain't oifim. Rashi says, ain't oifim Yom Tov l'chavir. Rashi says, pass. You can't bake bread. So on Thursday and Friday, or in this case, we don't have to say Thursday and Friday, any 2 days Yom Tov. From the first day Yom Tov, you cannot cook, you cannot bake for the second day Yom Tov. Every day Yom Tov by itself. Why? Because you might be cooking from Yom Tov for a weekday. Because if the first day is Yom Tov, then the second day is not Yom Tov. Then you're baking for a weekday. However, he says there's difference. V'emes amru, but in truth they said, which means you can get away. Baking is taka not allowed, but the woman, she doesn't want to sit and cook every day Yom Tov. But she's not allowed to, you say she's not allowed to cook from the first day Yom Tov for the second day. So what is she going to do? So he says, the rabbi said like this, Memalo isho kol hagedera basar. She can go ahead and fill the entire top with meat, with entire pot with meat. Even though afal pi she'eina tzricha elo lachaticha achas. Even though she only needs one piece, she still is allowed to fill the whole pot. For Yom Tov, she needs one piece of meat. She can fill the whole pot with meat, and then she keeps it the rest of it for the second day Yom Tov. Rashi, b'mala yishachulu. The b'chat tirchasagi. Because with one, you're not cooking it again and again. It's not like baking. Baking, each piece you have to bake separately. So if she's baking for the next day, you can't, it's not like one tircha. But over here, the b'chat tircha sagi. And the same thing in the next case, v'chein benachtum legabe milui. The baker, he needs the hot water for the kneading, whatever he's using to make the baker to make the bread. He needs hot water. So even though he only needs a little bit for what he's going to make today, he can fill the entire barrel with water. Even though he needs just one jug of water, he can fill it all up. Why? Because there's one trouble. He fills the pot. There's no separate work over here, so you can go ahead and do it. But to bake, you can only bake what you need. Kol kikar v'kikar tzricha afia uredia lasma. Each loaf and loaf requires its own baking and its own redia. That's the removal. The way they used to bake it, they used to paste up the bread to the oven, to the sides, the top of the oven. Used to bake by the bottom. The heat was coming from the bottom. They used to paste, and then they had to remove the breads. It's called the redia sapas, the removal of that bread. So each loaf requires its own baking and its own redia for itself. So therefore, you can't say we're going to fill up the oven with bread because it's not going to, not allowed to. But Rabbi Shimon Wolosow disagrees. He says no. He says Memalo isha kol hatanur pas. She could fill in the whole oven with bread, even though you only need one loaf. Why? The bake bakes well if it's a full oven. When it's heats up well and there's more bread, it bakes better. So today's bread needs the other breads to be there for today's bread, and therefore you're allowed to do that. What is it? So Rashi explains Shatanurim kitanuim hoyu. They were small ovens. Umadbikin pas bitfanis. And they would paste the bread on the walls of the oven. That's how they would stick them. And because it's full with breads, mismait chaloli. So then the hollow, the open area, is diminished. And there is no room for the heat to spread out. And the passes break better. So that's why that's okay. So he allows you to make a full oven with bread because it's helpful actually to the bread that you're making now. Amarava says Rava, Allah Shimon, Allah is like a Shimon. So this was a question to the people in the yeshiva. Mi shaloi heniach eruv tafshilin. A person who did not leave an eruv tafshilin. So what is the locha? Who nesar? So he's not allowed to bake. Who nesar lefos? He didn't leave the eruv tafshilin, so he's not allowed to bake on Friday for Shabbos, and is also the kimcha nesar, and also his flour is also. What does it mean? His flowers is also. You can't bake, and you can't have other people bake the flour while it's yours. They're not allowed to bake the flour. Everything has become also. You can't bake now. You're not allowed to bake, and your flour is not allowed to be used as long as the flour is yours. The kimcha nesa zok Rashi, shelo yu acherim efim kimcha oide shelo. While the flour is still yours, you're not allowed to. Nobody can bake it either. So you became osur to bake, and your flour became osur. Oidilma, or on the other side is hu nesar. Well, they kimcha nesa. You can't bake, but your flour is okay. Well, so what am I going to do if I can't bake it? No, l'mayin of kimina. So what is it? What difference does it make if it's awesome? Laknuyi kimcha lachim. This lashon Rashi is a little difficult because that's what the Gemara said. The difference is kimcha nesar means that can never bake it. Like nuyi kimcha lachim. What happens if you want to give your flour? Somebody else owns it. In tzorich losid b'matona as kimchoy sheyu achedim mutorin la'afoisoi v'losis loy. The question is, does it need to give if his flour became osur? Then he must give acquisition of his flour to somebody else. So they should be able to bake and gift it if his flour is awesome. And what are some of these? If they're both awesome, they cannot bake for him while it's still his. Then you would have to give the kemach away to the other people. But if you say who nesa ve'ein kimcha nesa, lo tzorich lachnoi kimcha lacherim, they can bake it while it's his. That's why I don't understand why Rashi, when it says kimcha nesa in the beginning, it's not lecherim eifin kimcha. Oh, yeah, no, Rashi explained. Rashi is making clear over there, his kemach is not going to be also for other people once he's makneh. The question is, does he need to be makneh, like the Gemara says here? No, it's exactly like the Gemara is saying. The question is there an issur on the kemach also, so that you have to give away the kemach before they can use it? Or there's never an issur on the kemach. If other people want to come in your house and they want to bake your kemach and give it to you, then it'd be fine.
Why would it be permissible for someone else to do it? I mean, if it's
Because you
an
never,
issue
the
of
Torah
rented.
says you can't bake. You didn't make an Erev Tavshilin. The other guy made an Erev Tavshilin.
Oh,
But he's going to use your flour. Does it extend to the flour? That's what he wants to know.
oh. Is that only if he's going to use your flour and give you the bread, or is it if
Yes,
he?
I mean, for sure. I mean, if your flour is also, then he's probably not allowed to use it even for himself.
Okay.
But he has to go. But we're talking about, why would he want to give away his flour? The problem, he doesn't have what to eat on Shabbos because he didn't make an Erev Tavshilin. What is he going to do? So we're trying to help him out over here. But the question is, how do we help him? By being makana to somebody else, or he can just have the other person cook for him. So what's the halacha? Do you have to be makana? Mara Toshma, come and listen. I'll prove to you from the Beitzah. It says, Misha loy inir erev tavshilin. If you didn't make an erev tavshilin, harizel lo yoifer, you can't bake. Velo yivashel, you can't cook. Velo yamtmin, and you can't hide. That one means that you leave the food over for Shabbos by covering up. Like we usually put away and hide the Shabbos food for Shabbos. You can't do it loy loy, not for yourself. Loy lacherim, you can't do it for others either. In other words, you didn't make an Erev Tashilin, you can't cook for others. The loy acherim oifim avashlim loy. And others cannot bake and cook for him from his own, as we'll see. They can't use his dough or his food to cook and bake for him. So what does he do? You acquire, give the kemach to others. Once it becomes somebody else's, then they bake for you and they cook for you. So you see very clearly, that he has become prohibited. He can't cook at all, and also the flour become up. The only way is you give away the flour to the other person, then he can cook and for you. The Gemara says, Shmamino, that's good. The Gemara has another question. They had a question in the Beis Medrash, in the yeshiva. If you transgressed and you did bake. So what's the question? So you baked. You didn't make an Erev and then you baked. Can you eat it on Shabbos? You forgot. Toshma, come on listen. It says because the Beitzah says that when they didn't make an Erev Tashilin, what do? You give away, you give the acquisition of the flour to other people. And the others will bake for you and they'll cook for you. That's similar. Turn the page. Doing Yuzainam base. So the Esau. So if it's true that it's okay to eat, so since the Mishnah is talking about what happens if you didn't make an Erev Tavshilin, why does the Mishnah not also say Lisna of a mutter? You should say, because we're looking what to do for this person that he didn't make an Erev Tavshilin. So why don't we bring down over there that if he violated, then he baked, then it's permissible. Esau, the offer mutter, that if he transgressed, it's mutter, it's permissible michti. So let's see, Tana takanto kamahadir. This Tana is trying to look for a way out for him, how to correct the situation. He didn't have a Erev. So nisni nami hachtakanta. Let him learn also this correction, together with the other correction that he gives away his makne, that he gives away to the other person, the kamach, and to say, or if he forgot, then he can use, why don't we sit together? That's a very easy answer. Amar Adam bar Masna. Tona takanto de teda kotoni. Our Tana teaches us a allowance which is heter. Can be makne, not talking about. Maybe takanta de teda sui beheter, which is done in a permissible way. Takanta di surah leikotoni. He's not telling us that takanta of Isur. So it may very well be that this Tana holds that the offer is mutter. The reason he doesn't mention it, because that's not a takona that you could. That's telling you if it happened, and that's not. He's not learning. That's not a question. But we don't have a proof that he holds that it's also. He can hold that it's mutter. He still doesn't want to say it because that's not a heter way. Toshma, bring another brayso. Misheniach. Eruve. Mishenich Eruve Tavshilin. He put an Erev Tavshilin. So he did the right thing. He put the Erev Tavshilin. So then, Harei Ze Oife Umevashel Umat. He can bake, can cook and hide. Now, Be'im Rotzo Lechel Es Iruvoi. If he wants to eat the Erev after he cooked and baked and hide, Arashus Biyod, he has a right. He can eat up his Erev. What happens? Ochloi ad shaloi ofa, or also actually ofa, and also actually bishul. We have to add this also that goes about. Oh, before the ofa, the bishul actually hitman. He ate it up before he finished. If you ate up your erev, then you can't bake, you can't cook, and you can't hide. Not for himself and not for others. And others cannot bake and cook for him. However, but he can cook for Yom Tov. And which means you are pretending that you're cooking for Yom Tov. But the im hoysir l'Shabbos. Okay, you're cooking for Yom Tov. But if you leave over, okay, then you leave over for Shabbos. So he is allowing him to cook for Yom Tov, and the leftover is leftover for Shabbos. But but you're not allowed to make a trick and really just pretend that you're leaving it for today, and then you're going to have it left over for Shabbos. That you're not allowed to do.
That's exactly what it sounds like, though.
Oh, we'll see the Rashi. Not to make a trick. But the Gemara's point, what he's trying to prove, so you see that we're not going to allow you, but if you should say that if you cooked, if you didn't live in Erev Tavshilin, but the evidence is okay, so why is the Gemara saying Bilvat Shela Yarim? And the Gemara says Vim Herim Osur. And if you did trick, it's Osur. But if we say that you ended up cooking of Shabbos is going to be mutter, so why is, if you made a trick, why should it be Osur? It must be that even with the evidence you can't eat it, because otherwise, why would Aroma be Osur? Again, let's look inside. In Rashi, Bilvat Shela Yarim, not allowed to make a trick, which means Lo Yarim. After he finished cooking what he needs, loymar to say, "Oy, dan itzorich lahazmin oirchin." I need to invite more guests. V'yivashel tachshilin achedim v'yesirem l'Shabbos, and he cooks other foods and he leaves them over for Shabbos. You can't do that. Rashi, however, says this only applies to cooking specially, and he's going to do another cooking. But if he's going to use one pot, he's going to make more for Shabbos. He said before, you're allowed to even do it for the weekday. Like we said before, she can fill a whole pot foot with meat because it's one tircha. Even though she needs one piece. So here we're talking about specially cooking again. But if you want to cook at once and you're going to leave it for Shabbos, that wouldn't be a problem anyways. But what does the Braisa say? V'im hedim also. But if you did trick and you did cook extra, you're not allowed to eat it. Also lecha. You're not allowed to eat it. Why? The achmar avmona meho milsa shalei lakis lakar toidas eruv. The Chachamim were strict in this matter because otherwise you're going to uproot the whole laws of eruv. Because nobody's going to care about the eruv because everybody's going to cook, and they say I need it for today, and they're going to leave it for tomorrow. So what's the whole Tcheres eruv? And the Rashi brings down earlier in the Gemara, we learned that Rabbi Barabba would salt pieces of meat on Yontiv one by one. He did it in a way of a trick. Why? He didn't want these things to go bad, the meat, and salting preserved it. So he would do a trick. How so? In the beginning, he would salt one piece and say, oh, I want to eat this piece today. And then after he salted it, he sort of changed his mind and said, oh, no, I like another piece. I like that better. And then he would salt the other one to eat that one. And so he would continue piece after piece until the whole thing was salted. So Rashi explains that even though he won, but it's still allowed. But here we're saying the harama is also. Rashi explains why would harama be also over here? The mullah groma. Why was that allowed over there? He salted piece by piece. So Rashi explains the ein ibud ba'ichlin. Salting does not constitute a malacha. Salting is when you salt leather and to salt it to thin it, that would be a malacha. And the only issue is troubling yourself, salting pieces that you don't need. So the Rashi, so we say, Mishum Tircha, so you're troubling yourself and Yontev unnecessarily. So we're saying, Ha Adifa. So this is better to do this way, because if you're not going to allow him to salt it, he's worried the meat is going to spoil, it's going to get betrayed, and then he's not going to shecht, he's not going to eat. So the kosalka daitoch, and we're thinking the hu hadin le avar va'afa, that if you baked, you should also not be allowed. That's what the Gemara's question is. Just like we're not allowing you a trick because you're going to uproot the laws of air, we're not going to allow you to eat it either. The same thing over va'afa. So that's why the Gemara wants to prove that even after the fact, you're not allowed to eat it. You were saying harama, you can't compare. Even though we don't allow you to make a trick, maybe by accident, after you cooked it, we'll allow it you. Shana rachmono Shanda Roma, not never accident. He made the Chmiru Barabonon. It's very amazing. Haroma, the Rabbonon were making a trick, is worse than intentionally doing it. If you're trying to make a trick and pretending like you're keeping the halacha, that's worse than intentionally. You may eat it when it's amazing, but you made a rama, you can't. Rashi explains Shani Rama. La'olam over va'afa mutar. You can, you're allowed to if you make it. Now, va'aroma ein raya lekan. And haroma is not a proof for our case. Why? The shani haroma memezid. It's different than mezid. Why? The ikol lemeimer achmu barabona baroma meiz tzvei memezid. Making a trick is worse than intentionally. The ilu mezid roshu lavar adivra chachomim. If he's a mezid intentionally, he's a rosha. He violates the words of chachomim. Ve'en achedim lemeidim and other people won't learn from him. And muatzma, he by himself, mesim aliboy v'shov. He will pay attention. He will do tshuva later on. Hilkach le'me'akra teres eruv. That will not uproot the laws of eruv. Abel Mairiv, but when you're making a trick, sober las is beheter. You think that you're doing a law, you're making a trick. Hilkach loy shova libe lachzer by. You're not going to put to your heart to do tshuva, to retract it, because you're saying, I didn't do anything wrong. Another will learn from him. Eruv, and the laws of Eruv will be uprooted. Hilkach kalsinu rabbonon, the rabbonon punished him. Okay, I have to learn. I've got to run to a Ma'ariv, so I'm going to leave it over here, and we'll continue next week. Be'ezras Hashem.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay.